and welcome to Lincolnshire Fen Crafts needle felting tutorials. If you have watched the first part of the chicken tutorial, then you'll know that we are about to start the wings. If you're just looking for a way to create really nice shaped wings in a simple, quick way, then this is a tutorial for you. I'm going to show you how easy it is to create these perfectly shaped wings, and you don't need a template. It's all done freehand. Now, if you are working from the needle felting kit, you will have your full instructions and your size guide, so you'll be working from that. So this is Daphne. In the previous video tutorial, I'll put the link below, we learned how to make this really perfect body shape, really nice and smooth. So if you want to learn how to make a really beautiful smooth finish on your needle felting projects, then just pop over and have a look at that video tutorial first. So here we go. I've got two sets of wings. I just thought it added more detail having the two sets, more dimension. And what we're aiming for is a really, really beautiful sort of curved shape, but also importantly to have a nice smooth finish when we attach it. So those are the things we're going to be focusing on. So I shall pop Daphne to one side and I shall get my wool. So all you will need is a felting mat. I'm using a Hessian one, but a foam one's fine, whatever it is you want to use. Because we are going to be flat felting, then it's even more important to have a topper so that we save the integrity of the mat for as long as possible. You can do this with a single needle. This is just a standard needle that I use, which is 38 star, and that's quite robust, so that's all you need for this. But if you want to speed up the process, then you can use a multi-tool. Here I have one that's got 3 needles attached to it. This is one of my favorites, the Big Guns, which is 7 needles, and that's a punch tool, brilliant for this type of project. Or if you want, you can just tape 2 needles together to speed it up. But you actually only need one. You don't need any of those other things. They are just for speed. And also the punch tool really does give a really nice finish. But we're using carded wool, so that shouldn't be a problem anyway. So what I would do is, we're going to make for this 2 sets of wings. So the bottom set is slightly bigger than the top set. So they're all made exactly the same way, but one set is slightly smaller than the other. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull 2 similarly sized pieces of wool together, and that way we can more or less guarantee that they're going to be roughly the same shape and size. So there we go. I've got 2. This is I thought it was Norwegian, but I think it's Perendale actually, and this is a really nice white carded wool. It's like a proper white. If I use the Jacob's lovely as well, as is the Shetland, but they're more natural and they're creamier, and I wanted a really nice sort of bright white finish, so I am using the Perendale carded bats. And all carded bats are sheets of felt that have been brushed in lots of different directions. Now, the easiest way without a cookie cutter is to use your needle to actually draw a really sort of simple petal shape that will be our guide for when we bring the wool in and over to the edges for our size and our shape. So this is what I'm going to do, and we'll probably end up pulling some of this wool off as we go, but this is what we're starting with, and they're roughly the same size. I haven't weighed them. So I'm just going to make this slightly larger wing to start with, and I'm just drawing that line with my felting needle. Can you see that? See how I've drawn that line there? And that's just a guide for shape, and it just makes it so much easier. And this is about the size of our finished wing. So there we go. both of those done. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to pull towards the center, and when I feel the resistance, which is this area here that I've just drawn around with my needle, when I feel that resistance, I'm going to stop and just sort of tack it gently with the felting needle, and then I'm going to do the same here, just using my fingers to bring that in. And I'm just going to leave that as it is. And can you see how immediately that shape has already started to form beautifully? And we are going to leave this loose. This is important that this is left loose, because this is how we attach it to the side of the chicken really seamlessly, or whatever bird it is you're making. This is a sort of universal shape. So again, to the other wing, doing exactly the same. Bring it to the center, just gently pulling until you feel that resistance. Now I can feel here already that this is a little bit thicker than the other wing, so I'm just going to take a little bit of that excess off. If you think it feels really thick or compared to the previous one, then pull a little bit of the wool off. There we go. So can you see I've got a really weird shape there? I'm just going to leave that because I know that that's going to shape as well. And this is slightly more pointy. That's fine, because we're going to, we can just pull that out if we want to with our fingers. I'm not bothered by that at all, because we're going to shape it and it's all going to sort of shrink and become a little smaller anyway. So what we've done there now is we've got a nice base to work on for both of those wings. So these are the bottom wings, which are slightly bigger. And then what I'm going to do before I do anything else is I'm just going to pull that, peel it away from that topper. And that's just I think it's a 1.2 mil pure wool topper, but you can actually use a blended topper. I think if you have around 30% wool, it should work absolutely fine. Acrylic works as well, but I do like to have some wool in the toppers. It just works better. Okay, so I've turned them over so that they don't end up sticking, and I'm going to start to use a needle just all over to start to firm that up. Now the reason we pull them over the edges as well is it gives us such a lovely soft edge and a nice soft finish that you can see here. So as I said, if you have a multi-tool, you can use a multi-tool to speed that up. And while I'm here, I'm just going to hold the wing like so, and I'm just going to pull off some of this wool before we get going any further. We don't want those wisps too thick, because we want it to sort of blend into the side of the body and look like it's just sort of being stuck on. And then I'm going to peel this back, turn it over, and do the same with the other one. I'm going to go to my punch tool. So it's got these 7 needles, and in here, these are fine needles. If you use the robust, like 36 or 38 needles, you'll find that what it does is it just sort of pushes the wool into the mat, because they're really thick and because they're close together. If you're using them as a single, absolutely fine, or even just as a double, 2 together, that's fine. But when you've got 7 together, it's better to have the fine needles. So here we go. I'm just going to push in. So it's got a guard, and that guard automatically retracts and pops back up as you're punching. It's called a punch tool. Well, I call it a punch tool. There we go. So I'm not going right to the edge just at the moment. I just want to do some shaping there. And I'm leaving this bit loose, don't forget. And then this one here, I'm just going to go to my single needle. I'm just going to take those funny shapes off, because now we're starting to shape it. And then really, really gentle taps. Keep those fingers flat. Keep that needle straight. In a moment I will show you a way to protect your fingers without having to use the finger guards, although I do recommend them. I'm just so used to it that I just don't bother. I find them a bit cumbersome. There we go. So we're going to go back in with the punch tool again. Make sure you come right off that wool. As you saw there, caught the wing because I hadn't actually pulled the needles all the way out. So I'd gone like that and then sort of dragged it across. So make sure you are coming out fully before you go back in again. And then turn them over. And repeat on the other side. Again, it will take longer with a single needle, but you will get a result that is just as good. Now they're really starting to firm up now, but they are too big, and if you're using your template then you'll have a comparison to work against. But when you're working this way, you're going to shrink the wool by at least 30%. So I'm going to go back to my single needle now, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull over those edges because I really want to start reducing the size. So if I just pull over those edges, and that's why I left the edges quite soft. Looks a bit odd at the moment, but that will all neaten out once we start punch needling it again and working on it. Take that away. And then as you can see here, what I'm doing is I am now neatening up those edges. I've got my fingers flat and I've got the needle flat, and I'm just pushing in and out just into the edges, not right the way through. It's just to create and firm up that nice shape. Turning it over. I'm going in diagonally now. I'm going to go back to the punch tool. And can you see how that is now flattening out those edges we brought in? And if I work it through from the other side, it will reduce those a lot further, those lines that were created when we pulled over the edges. So what it's doing now is it's pushing the wool back through. And you see how I've almost lost those? And then what you will do is you will find your sort of neatest side. Now I've got a little bit of a thin area there. I don't really want that. It doesn't really matter because it's going to be the bottom one, but I'm just going to, and this is how easy it is just to fix these little minor issues, is just lay a little bit of carded wool, the same wool that we started with, on top of there, just to reduce that thin patch, sort of just, there we go. You see, and I'm keeping this loose all the time. Now here, you can see I've got a little bit of a rough edge there. So what I'm going to do is, this is just a really safe and quick and effective way to really firm up those edges. I've got a piece of cardboard here. Pop it so that the edge is right on the edge of the cardboard, even sticking out just a little bit. And then what you want to do is just take your needle, and this avoids, it keeps it nice and flat and firm, so it stops you ruining the shape, but also firms up around the edge of the wing. And then you can push that further in. Can you see? bring it out a little bit, and then we can just push in here and then turn it around and do the same on the other side. Either flush to the cardboard or just protruding slightly, but just slightly. And again, that will allow you to shape and firm, keeping fingers out of harm's way. If you are doing this with kids, and I don't recommend this for anyone under sort of the age of 12, always make sure they wear finger guards, and always make sure that they are supervised. They get distracted quite easily, and before you know it, you've got a screaming child. Just because it pricks, it doesn't really do a great deal of damage. I've never had any major injuries from a needle, and I've never had any infections from a needle, and I've had needles go in one side and out the other, so believe you me, I've had them all. Okay, can you see how that's starting to really tidy up now? But it's a little bit square here, so I'm just going to work along those edges, and here I want to bring this in. So I kind of want to start really shaping this wing now, and because it's firming up, you can almost do that with your finger. And that's coming along nicely now. And as it firms up as well, you'll find that there's no need to keep turning it as often because it's firmed up. So you're matting all those fibres together, so they're not ending up in your mat, you know, sort of stuck to your mat. And if you were using foam for this, I wouldn't recommend, well, I don't recommend you use a kitchen sponge, because what will happen is you will end up with all the sponge sort of in bits inside the piece you're working on. I always use, in my kits, I always put in really good sort of upholstery foam, so it's nice and strong and doesn't break up. But again, always recommend you pop a topper on top of any mat that you are using, just for longevity, because it will just last so much longer. But look at that. Isn't that amazing? You know, just from that little sort of handful of rough wool, we've now got this beautiful sort of wing emerging. And that is pretty much it for your wing. And then all you want to do now is repeat the same for the other wing. And once you've done that, then if you're making a set of wings, you want to do exactly the same thing again and make them slightly smaller. And again, if you're working from the template in your kit, you've actually got this smaller wing template here as a guide. So I will carry on with my second wing, and I will also create the two smaller wings. And then once you've done that, come back and I will show you how to attach them really nicely to the side of your bird. And I might even reduce this in size again, I'll see. But whatever you're working on or whatever you're making, make it so that it sort of works with whatever it is it's being attached to. So make sure that the proportions look nice. Okay, so I shall see you back in a moment. Hi, and here we are back again. So you should now have in front of you two sets of wings, one slightly larger set and one slightly smaller set. Now, just a quick tip here before we attach them. If you lay your wings on top of each other and you find that one is slightly sort of bigger than the other, so put the bigger one on the bottom, you can actually use the top one as a guide just to slightly reduce the size of the bigger one. That's a really good tip. As you can see, that this one's slightly smaller, and I've got a little bit of a sort of dent in that bit there, and you see how it gently, or you can even use your fingers just to straighten that out. And here again, the bottom one slightly bigger. So I'm just going to follow the top one as a guide. Just to make sure they're roughly the same size, which they are. And then also here, I really want to narrow this little part here at the base of the wing. So again, fingers flat, and then that way you're keeping them away from the needle. And you can also, if you find, for example, this one still looks a little bit wide, which I'm not really bothered about, it won't matter. But if you're a perfectionist, then you can actually just pull that wool like so, and that will actually stretch it out. And then I'm just going to do the same with this one. And just narrow the base of that wing, but leaving this piece here nice and loose for attaching to the side of the chicken. So those are all my sort of tips and easy ways to create a wing shape. Any shape you like. That's just a very, very simple way. And they're more or less looking the same. Just going to do a little bit more there. And make sure you get at the bottom as well if you need to. Turn it around, because you may see where you haven't quite caught it on the other side. And there we go. They're pretty much okay. And remember, they're going to be on different sides, so you're not going to be looking at them as a direct comparison. And again here, you can see that one's slightly rounder. So I'm just going to bring this in here. Same the other side. And now that it's firmed up, it's really easy to get these shapes to sort of start to change. And you can use your fingers as well. Just looking a little bit odd there. So this is just the, and take your time, get this part right, because this is what is going to give that overall finish, that sort of look of perfection and symmetry and neatness, which is what we're really aiming for here, because there's nowhere to hide, there's nothing going on this, there's no embellishments. I mean, obviously they're going on top, so you know they're quite forgiving underneath, but these top ones in particular. So there we go. So again, I'm just going to hold that tight there so I don't lose that shape, and just pull off any extra wisps that seem quite loose. And there we go. So they're both ready now to attach to the side of our chicken. And here we are. Here's one I made earlier, which was done in the previous video. So if you've done the previous tutorial, then you've moved on to this one. If not, you could be working on a completely different project of your own, and you're using this as a guide for your own wings. Whatever you're doing, pick a side, doesn't matter. And you can add them together if you want to speed it up, or if you want, you can actually do the base first, and then you're not worried too much about any needle marks shown, because that is going to be covered up by the top one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my needle and I'm going to work diagonally and just tack in, work from this side, bring that wool in and just tack that in, and then work through there. And this won't be visible, so don't get too precious about needle marks. And then just underneath as well, so you can actually work this, and we're leaving this loose. So we'll probably go to about here, because we want that nice three-dimensional effect with the wings sort of slightly sticking out. And then if we feel that they're sticking out too much once it's finished, then we can just pop a few pokes with the needle through. And then you can just either use your nail, or using a robust, not a fine needle, because it will break if you do this, but you can just drag that wool just to seamlessly attach that. So I'm just going to leave that as it is at the moment, and then I'm going to pop my slightly smaller wing on top of that, decide which is my best side, quite like that, and then placing the wisps over where you attach the bottom wing. You see there? You're going to attach it in exactly the same way. It's going to work at this angle. And what you could do as well is you could attach the wing on the other side, the bottom wing on the other side as well, if you're worried about getting it in exactly the same place. I know I had to take mine off when I made my first one. But you see how nicely that's attaching? There's no sort of real visible lines. And if you wanted to, and you have a finer needle, although it's not necessary, can you see how much more bendy that is? You can actually use a finer needle. This is a 40, I think this is a 40 triangular. And what that does is that has, it's a smaller needle, so it reduces the needle marks. But to be honest, the 38 is fine. And then just go, you see now how that's attached? Kind of want that in there, and then you can just go down the edges there and the other side, and that's pretty much it. That's attached rather nicely, and very little seam showing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to poke this in a little bit more firmly, and then I'm going to take a tiny wisp of carded wool, and I'm going to pop that over the area we've just felted on, just to make that finish even better. And if you took that and felt that under and around that wing, it will be almost invisible where it's been attached. And then if you do the same here, so you've got that bit sticking out, so just bring that around and then just push it into the side of the wing there where it's been attached, and then flatten it out diagonal. Always keep it diagonal. Now I would normally spend a little bit more time than this, but you don't need to sit here with me for too long. You can see exactly what you're doing. And then again, just use your needle just to pull over any wisp. But you may not even need this top layer. It's just if you feel that those seams are quite visible, or they're annoying you, or you're not quite happy with the finish. But you see why it was important to have those really sort of thin wisps here, because otherwise it would have sort of stuck out like a lump on the side. And this way it becomes part of the body and looks much more natural in its position. There we go. And then I'm going to pop to the other side, and just for speed I'm going to do them both together. So look at it from the front and see where those wings are going to sit, and felt them both through, and get rid of any sort of little bits of grass that remain in the wool later. It's a natural product. You're always going to get, you know, especially in carded wool, you're always going to get little flecks of grass and hedgerow. You know, they go through a really rigorous cleaning process, but obviously things get tangled in that just don't want to budge. So if they are visible when you finish, just pluck them out. Just get your needle and just flick them out like so. So now I'm just going to check where that wing is, and can you see it's slightly further back? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push that up slightly, pull that up, because I haven't over felted it, I can still move it. And that's the key with this as well, is keep checking those positions, and before it is in its final position and you want to felt it really firmly, just double check you're happy with where it's sitting. Just make sure, there you go, it looks kind of right from the front. Okay, so you can continue again to work that until you're happy with the final look, because remember, this is what's going to be visible. And there we go. There's our wings attached. And so in the next tutorial, what I will do is show you how to create the wattle and the crown, which are so easy to do. We'll do our finishing touches. We'll do the wattle, the crown, the little beak. We'll add the eye details and this gorgeous majestic tail, which is so easy. You know, you've done the hard part. We're on to the fun bit now. It's all fun, but you know, we're on to the easy part now. There's all the finishing touches, which we all love and look forward to. But it's really important that you do spend that time getting these wings and that base right, because that's kind of the scaffolding for everything, and that is what will make your finished project look so much better. So thank you for joining me. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you got a lot of hints and tips out of that, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thanks for watching.